like this. Protections against displacement, traffic, as we know, parking, and really making sure that the district is designed for locals more than anything else. So residents shared their aspirations about the district's cultural and recreational and economic potential. As far as big ideas, this was and I'll try to describe that activity where we gathered people's big ideas across all 10 districts. We split everybody up into round tables, and they had a map in front of them, and they could share really something they might want to map on the actual district. They might have shared a concern or an aspiration in general. So it was sort of carte blanche. And the value of that conversation is that people who have, again, a variety of perspectives on the project are talking to other residents, right, colleagues in city making, about their maybe varied ideas as well. And so at the end of that about 30 to 40 minute conversation and discussion and sharing of ideas, each table shared their 3 big sort of consensus ideas with the entire forum. And there we started seeing, a pattern around connectivity and walkability, getting to and from the district, traffic congestion, affordable and inclusive housing, and then again, this element of making sure that this process continues to be transparent, that there continues to be accountability across on the goals that are set and on the guiding principles that we'll present, was a big part of it. Next, I'll share a bit about what the housing focus group themes were. And again, these were housing focus groups that were held at each district. So there was a total of 10. They were all very well attended. We were happy to see people come and speak out at those. And that was more of a format of Q&A, sharing a little bit about the project related to that topic. How is housing related to the project? What are the potential opportunities for housing? And then after that presentation, we heard this continued topic of concern of affordability and anti-displacement. Again, this is just something that is related to something that we're hearing, across the whole city, right? Not just around the district. It's very important. It's present. It's real in people's lives. Preservation and rehabilitation of existing housing. Again, focused around the neighborhoods that are going to be impacted by projects such as this. But then, obviously, in districts that are not in D1, D2, those concerns also resonated with those groups, even in their districts, right? So the thought of the spillover, right, of increased activity, economic activity, and what that means in terms of neighborhood preservation across the city was important. And then integration with transit and neighborhood stability overall. Transportation focus groups. So we had a few focus groups, again, those 10 focus groups across all 10 districts. And the topics that we heard really were focused on expanding public transportation, the park and ride systems. I think that kind of resounded in that's what's in my head. Hey, we would love to have more expanded park and ride opportunities for people to get downtown with public transit across the entire city. Expanded transportation hours so that they're useful during an event, but also so that they're useful for the workforce that are coming in and out of the district, to make sure that works for them, which is that last element on the slide. We also talked about public space, and there the focus that we wanted to highlight here is the fact that people spoke a lot about safety, accessibility, and the design of public space, and that it continues to have a local identity. So don't make this sort of a Disneyfied area. We heard that a lot. We want to make sure that San Antonio continues to look like San Antonio. People are very proud of the way that the city is designed and the heritage that that they've had, that it was passed down to them by our forefathers that established the city, and that we still get to enjoy every day. So again, the authenticity and preservation of our local identity. We also had a lot of conversations around programming that was affordable, that was local, that was targeted at locals, that was targeted at youth. So what opportunities can we have for youth to engage and enjoy the district as we expand on it? Local businesses. So here again, it's all about the local, right? It's all about helping local businesses, creating opportunities by varying maybe sizes of tenant spaces, and integrating that with the academic and workforce pipelines. All right, so I'll move on and to just briefly go through the themes that are embedded in the guiding principles. And so there's a list of guiding principles in everyone's report. It's quite a long list. And they're all categorized around these themes. And so this is what they are. Again, what resonated, this is maybe somewhat in order of I don't want to say importance, but the pattern repetition that we saw. And so things just became more and more obvious that they needed to be part of a category or a theme. So again, community engagement, continued community engagement, continued shared decision making across all of the elements that would make the district, from projects, right, to the community benefits agreement. So sharing in that decision making was really important. Preserving housing and protecting neighborhoods, access to mobility, congestion and congestion relief. So open space, again, a category for open space. How important arts and culture is, and making sure that as monies are considered to be used for different elements, that the monies that are now part of what propels arts and culture, right, continues to be a key to making the space local. Local business and hiring, inclusive and equitable access, and maybe that bears a little bit of expansion, but this is related to making sure that programming events are at all of affordable prices, right? So to make this a space that is useful, to make events that are held here accessible to all San Antonians. So just briefly on stakeholder meetings, and I want to note that as of this week, we're still engaged with some stakeholders. We are bringing in notes and just great ideas from stakeholders even as we speak. So that's one of the reasons why you see a draft in your all's draft report, because we're still integrating this as we have conversations with stakeholders. But again, there was a variety of perspectives that we're trying to capture in those stakeholder conversations. And so you see some of these here, right? Some of them are related to reviving community traditions, supporting that visitor experience, being inclusive in our design as far as accessibility. And then some even more and more specific. This is where we have more specific conversations about elements like the Alamo Dome improvements and specific project needs like that. Okay, so of note is that toward the middle of our community engagement plan, there was a Q&A session that was added. And so at the suggestion, if I may, of Mayor Jones, she wanted to make sure, I think, and I can't speak for you, Mayor, but I think I get the spirit of why that was important to you, that was added, so people had a chance to be a little more engaged before we got into the table discussions. So we were asked to just include a little bit of a Q&A right before, so that the discussions, I think, were a little more informed when we broke out into those groups.
Well, let me just clarify.
Sure.
When I went to it was the one session that I went to, it was the D10 session, and it was a presentation that was laid out by Ms. Houston, and then there were comments provided by the Able City representative, and then they went straight into asking folks to draw on the map. And when I received the presentation from the back, it was a packed house, right? Credit to District 10, it's always packed. But I did hear folks, kind of lean over and said, when are we going to ask questions, or when are we having a discussion? And because there wasn't a formal part of that presentation, which I was surprised by, and I think those in attendance were also surprised, I wanted to make sure that we amended that moving forward. So I appreciate the team's inclusion of that for the sessions that followed.
Sure, absolutely. No, yeah, of course, and there was, and we welcome that element in it, and we really tried to extract the most value out of it as we could, and then we broke out into the table discussions. So the presentation went away. Here we go. So a lot of those really centered on, again, arena funding, right? That was one of the repeating question elements or themes. Transportation, congestion, parking, we start to see a pattern here. Economic impact, is this good overall for the entire city? And then, of course, questions on affordable housing and what that means, where it is, what the plans are for it. How does this plan plug into affordable housing generally, and how can it solve the affordable housing crisis, or be an element in solving the affordable housing crisis for the city overall? I think we all agree that's one of our most prescient issues that we're all trying to respond to as well as we can. And so then now I'm going to take you through the citywide results. Now this paints somewhat of a different picture from what we saw at the forums. So I could say there's a slightly broader perspective here from people that maybe couldn't attend the meetings, and I'm sure a lot of people that attended the meetings answered the survey as well. But this was 2,500 respondents across the city of San Antonio. And so these are the questions that were asked. And maybe it's a little small on there, so I'll help with a little bit of reading. How familiar are you with the proposed downtown sports and entertainment district? Somewhat familiar. I must say that by the time somebody got to this question, there was a previous question, and I'll go to the end. Did you watch the video? So there was a video explainer created to just give everyone the basic level of information that we thought was valuable to answer this survey. So by the time they got to here, they at least had that baseline level of understanding as they gave us their input. How often do you attend large events downtown and concerts or cultural celebrations like Fiesta, Diwali? So rarely was the top answer, and occasionally was the second top answer. How do you usually travel downtown? We're in San Antonio. It's going to be the personal vehicle. There's lots of efforts in hand to increase that. And again, we heard that like resoundingly. We want to get to these events on public transportation as much as possible. That's actually one of the other questions that were answered. What would make it easier and more enjoyable for you to travel to events or Spurs games in the entertainment district? This people could pick more than one. So the top three were more convenient public transportation options, safer sidewalks, and improved street lighting, and additional parking. How important is it that the sports and entertainment district include nearby affordable housing? Very important was the top answer. Somewhat important. So those two were the top two answers, right? That were the majority of the respondents. What factor would make you consider using something other than a personal vehicle to get downtown? So selecting the top three: faster travel time, lower cost than parking and gas, and then lastly, more reliable and frequent transit service. So again, the theme here is public transit seems to be a key element for the respondents, right? As a solution for the traffic, and as a way to make it a more enjoyable way to get to an event at the district. How important are Spurs to San Antonio culture? So I guess no surprise there, right? The top answer was very important or somewhat important. So there's a high priority there amongst the community. What factor would make you consider using something other than, oh, sorry, I just read that. What concerns, if any, do you have about the proposal or changes in the sports district? So increased traffic and congestion. That was the top answer, followed by rising costs and gentrification. Okay, and then lastly, would you like to stay involved with updates? Answer was yes. Again, the calling for more community engagement and continued transparency and shared decisions was a big part of it, and this shows that people want to stay more informed. What types of amenities would enhance your overall experience when visiting the sports and entertainment district? So more dining options, welcoming public spaces. This just kind of got a really good broad spectrum of the whole thing. You were able to choose up to 5 here. All right, so did you watch the video? We talked about that. And then this is a key one. No property taxes from general taxpayers will be used to build the San Antonio Arena. However, would you support the use of city bonds to improve traffic, walkability, and pedestrian safety for the sports and entertainment district if the San Antonio residents were to vote on a city bond? And so we had the top answer be yes, and then as a tie, the other 2 answers were no, and then unsure, we need more information. Again, focusing on needing more information, continued conversations with the public is key, and so that would then be sort of the conclusion of that that last answer, which is sort of an unresolved, we need more information and we want to make sure we provide it. And then next, the poll results. So this poll was given to the participants of the forum, and the poll asked if we could use $1 million, if you could use $1 million to anything you want, right? And this is all, that's metaphorical, right? We all know it's not just $1 million. It's sort of just a way to set priorities. What is your top priority in the use of resources that the city could provide? And so here we have, and again, an explanation here. We had an original poll result with fewer choices. We got some really great feedback from staff, and again, we always say this at the beginning. We are needing to, whenever we see improvement, we can pivot. This is part, we can pivot from input from residents, we can input from input. So pivoting and improving the experience and the information we give you is definitely something we're open to. So we did the original one in D2, D4, D5, D7. We got the top result of increased affordable housing as a top priority. And then as we expanded the poll into more questions, then the top result was economic and workforce development, followed by affordable housing. And so those are and those were rolled out in the rest of the districts, and in the repeat forums that we had in D8, and one. Actually, I didn't talk about this, but we did we as an aside, we did a great added forum for students. We called it Student Edition. We worked with a Better Futures Institute to help, and that was a really great experience, hearing just from the youth. So we encourage you to see the results of that in your report. That was sort of inspiring to see all these kids just really interested in giving feedback to their city leadership on the project. So what's next? This is not a conclusion, right? This is a starting point for a conversation. We really wanted to provide to you a structured reflection of what we heard to help you make the difficult decisions that you have to make as you roll this out, and a way to guide those decisions. And so I'm here to answer questions, and we're here to support the follow-up of the conversation that I think the community is asking for as this rolls into the next phase.
Thank you for the presentation. If I may, just because there wasn't a Q&A portion at all of those, and I noted the ones where there was not one.
Mm-hmm.
So if that council member was present for that Able City session and would like to provide some feedback based on what they heard and saw there, I want to give those members an opportunity. So see, Councilwoman Villagran was here, but she has stepped aside. Councilman Castillo, would you like to share anything based on the session that you attended, if you attended? please.
Sure. So a couple of moving pieces. I appreciate the work that Able City did with the time frame that they were issued in scheduling meetings with community on a very short notice. And with that, right, each council district was assigned a meeting and not necessarily given the flexibility to move around the assignment for community engagement. So with that, the assigned date for District 5, it conflicted with something that we had. So I think that's an issue that I did bring up to the mayor during our one-on-one. And I do think that, again, given the time frame that Able City was given, you all provided the best facilitation that y'all could. But I'll get into the weeds in terms of the survey results when I get into my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
I see there was not a Q&A session at District 7. So Councilwoman, did you attend that session? If you did, if you'd like to share comments.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I didn't because, as Councilwoman Castillo just pointed out, they were scheduled without us. And so I had a prior commitment to Neighborhood Association.
And then, yeah, Councilman White, if you'd like to. I saw you there, so go ahead.
Yes, and thank you, Mayor, for attending our District 10 session. I think the sessions were really good overall. I think the biggest problem with this whole thing from the beginning has been the lack of information that has been shared with the public. But we're finally at the stage now where they're getting that information. And Lori did a great job on that night of presenting the facts to my constituents in District 10. And I heard many comments at the end that now that folks were understanding the financial structure of the project, that they were much more optimistic that something could be done that, again, the whole community could get behind, and something that would benefit all of San Antonio. So I was pleased with how it went. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, Councilman White, in that the Able City presentations did not include numbers. This was an idea of how it would go about, but there were not hard and fast numbers associated with the costs. Certainly the contribution, by that time we had not received, for example, the Spurs' letter about their contribution, nor had we the guarantee from the county with their willingness to go up to $399 million when you include the $88 million that they'd be willing to forgo to let the Spurs out of their contract. So I think it's helpful that we, level set in terms of the information that folks did have an opportunity to provide feedback on, and a piece of that information was not how much this would cost, and did not include how much each would be asked to contribute.
But, well, if I could, Mayor,
Please.
we were able on that night,
Yeah.
as you remember, to lay out the basics of the structure and
Yeah.
the fact that no property taxes would be used towards the stadium, and we had an idea on that night of who would be paying what. And we also talked about the infrastructure piece.
I'm familiar, Councilman White. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think
so while we didn't have-
no, 1 second, excuse me. So while I think it's really important that we talk about laying out what the PFZ actually is, what the TERS actually is, we did not spend a lot of time clarifying that for folks. I know there is a statement out there, yes, that this is not coming from the general fund. I understand how folks are making that argument. I understand that. That doesn't necessarily mean that money that could go into the general fund, right, or some percentage of that, right, that is still, again, something that we can clarify and level set for folks, because just because it goes into the TERS doesn't mean it could not also come into the general fund.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
definitely didn't go that deep on that
Well,
night.
that's the important part, is people need to know how it would be financed, how it would be financed. Let me save the rest of your comments for your time. Okay. Eric, did you want to go through all the presentations and then comments?
I was going to suggest that, Mayor. Yes, ma'am. So John Katz will.
Actually, I'm sorry. Let me just afford Councilwoman Villagran the opportunity. For those, there wasn't a formal Q&A session at your Able City session, so if there's some comment that you wanted to provide during that, please do so, Councilwoman.
No, I want to thank you for what you did at our session. I think people were able to kind of talk at the tables. While a Q&A would have been nice, my residents were very good. I was there for a portion of the time of expressing what they wanted, and It was what you hit on, how are they going to get there, when they get here, how much is it going to cost, where they're going to walk, and the other aspect was the culture. So, no, my residents did express their questions to me and continue to do so, so thank you.
Mayor, members of council, it's my pleasure to be here. I'd like to begin talking broadly about the general economic impact model, the funding and development model that tends to govern these types of projects, and including San Antonio. And I'm looking at it in three perspectives. The revenues that support the projects that we studied, which really were the convention center, the Alamo Dome, a new music venue, and then separately there's general economic development, housing in the district. But from a venue perspective, we look at those revenues. The first one, the hotel PFZ, is really legislatively dedicated to public assembly venues. The hotel occupancy tax, again, it's a tax paid by the visitors. So the model that's being developed is, let's get the visitors to pay through these various mechanisms to fund a variety of projects for the community. And in this particular case, the assets we're looking at would be the staying competitive in the convention industry through investment in the convention center. Improving the Alamo Dome for major events and community benefit. It is an aging, old structure, so improving it just to get back to general standards is an important element. A new music venue that kind of slots into that 4,000 to 5,000 seats into a gap that we have for attracting a large number of these mid-sized concerts to the market. And then, as I mentioned, the broader district economic development that exists and can exist throughout the district. Those are the assets that are being developed through taxes that are largely visitor-based. That's the model. We see this in every city we go to. The spin-off benefit for the public sector includes the employment, the wages, tax revenues, quality of life assets for your residents as they attend these facilities, and then economic development in the sense of broadening the tax base, growing the tax base to support development within the entire community. And San Antonio is a growing market. So this is a model that we'll see, and we tend to see all over the country, and we actually see it here also in the airport. Just looking back at enplanements or air traffic data, we're looking at a 2.5% to 5% growth annually in air traffic, yet we're looking at about a 9 or 10% growth in the billions and billions of dollars spent on the airlines industry and the airports. And the revenue comes from the airline industries through fees. So you're using that industry to fund billions of dollars of investment in this particular case, airports. And we see that in San Antonio with a $1.4 billion Terminal C project, and it'll be fantastic, $2.5 billion over 20 years. It's a model where we take those people that use it and we use it to fund the asset. So very similar around the country. It's what we see pretty regularly. So now let's kind of get into some of the math, if you want to think of it that way. Economic impact is not a complicated science. It's A times B times C, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when we look at this, we start with the new events that might be attracted to the venues. Who are we going to bring in that we've been losing? What will this investment in a convention center, a stadium, arena, a music venue, what will these investments do in terms of bringing new events to our market? How many attendees will we generate? And then of that, which share of these attendees are new to our community? In our models, we've basically looked at the new convention activity we might attract, and we've taken 29 to 37% of it and just washed it out of the model. The theory is that even if it's a big convention, we may be attracting attendees from the regional area. And if somebody comes from 15, 20, 30 miles away to go to an event, they're not staying in the hotel. So we're trying to be conservative in the sense that it's the new visitors that might come to the market. I look at consumer shows, and you've probably all been to an auto show or home and garden show or whatever it might be. 95% of the impact of any new events we wash out of the model. If it's an entertainment event at the convention center or a seminar or something like that, 99% of that gets washed out of the model to make sure we're just focusing on those impacts that are new to the community. Then we multiply that by spending per capita using national data adjusted for the hotel situation and rates in San Antonio, and that gets us to the upper right, the new spending generated by the event attendees and patrons and the exhibitors and the promoters. What we're careful about is making sure we're not missing something that might lead us away from the notion of net new. So as I mentioned earlier, we're not counting spending by locals. When I look at the event days that might come from the convention center, how long an event lasts, we know that not every attendee stays all 3 days or 4 days. So we take that down a little bit. Some markets, we make a counter adjustment. We did not do that here to increase the average length of stay for people coming a little early, staying a little late for leisure. We're San Antonio. We have the ability, and we actually do that, but just to be safe, we've not included any of that come early, stay late impact. Not all sales are taxable. If it's a tax-exempt group, we don't count their tax impact. That's 5 to 10% haircut right there. There is potential development, obviously, in the district, but then across I-37 in the lots around the Alamo Dome, and we're not including that. We have seen plans that show residential restaurant entertainment development within the district around the existing convention center, potential new music venue, potential new arena, but the plans for the other side by the dome have not been fleshed out. And if it's not on paper and it's not fleshed out, it's not in the study. In addition, I suspect, and you probably all would agree, that as this project takes place, if it does, development on parcels around the district will also move forward. Developers are going to look at that and they're going to want to invest in that, and that's not counted in this. Not all attendees use hotels, another 5 to 10% haircut, and we don't count property taxes in our models. So with that, the concept of
Sir,
net new...
if I may,
Yeah,
can you
Mayor.
go back to your methodology? I think it'd be helpful to shape the rest of your presentation. Can you outline the assumptions that you made?
I have snippets of them here. They're in the full report that you have not seen yet, but that is, as we get the economic impact and the program numbers finalized next week, you'll see all of them, but I can certainly walk you through a lot of the assumptions.
Okay, so there's another forthcoming economic impact analysis report?
Well, there's the full report for example, the convention center, the full feasibility study.
Okay.
And in that report, we talk about the events and the new attendance, so those kind of metrics that drive the economic impact. We're looking, and I'll get to that on the convention center slide. We'll get into some more of that as well.
And that's really helpful because I think in the district, I mean, one of the assumptions we'd have to make based on what you're going to present, for example, is whether the sports and entertainment district can in fact support two competing venues, two competing arenas. So we have to
Right.
assume that is the case to allow for the rest of your analysis to be
Yeah.
justifiable. Is that
Yep.
so? Is that a key assumption you made?
It is, and we looked at the entire landscape of music entertainment venues in San Antonio, and the big daddy is the Alamo Dome, 65, 70,000 seats. You look at any professional sports arena, and they're in that 19, 20,000 seat range. We have a couple of venues, Moody Gardens Amphitheater, for example, that are in that smaller share, but not a lot, and that's where we play. So imagine going from 60,000 to 20,000, we're 4 to 5. So with respect to those three venues, it's a nice progression. In a dream world, if I'm a music professional, I may start at the new music venue, and I may graduate to the new arena, and then I may graduate someday to doing a stadium tour. So they're all three different markets within the same general industry. So we have looked at that carefully, and that'll be all laid out in the report. So economic impact, we just talked about net new direct spending, but we also know that that is respent. So if the front desk manager has to take her daughter to a doctor, there's spending generated by her job, the fact that she's employed, into other sectors. The concierge at a restaurant may have to get his car fixed. So there's a respending of dollars that move into wages for the hospitality industry that impacts the entire economy. And that's part of the induced and direct spending. So we talk about this notion of total output in the middle. That's what it is. It's the direct, indirect, and induced spending. So the projects that we're looking at, you can see there are 5 of them here. We've studied 4 of them, the convention center expansion, the Alamo Dome improvement, the new music venue. We've also looked at not the feasibility, but the impact of proposed development throughout the district. The arena is another project that we have not studied in detail, but I'll leave that for comments later. Looking at the convention center, we are looking at, let me missed a page here. We are looking at in terms of the expansion program, and I think You probably have not seen all of this in detail, but generally speaking, what's happening is you're familiar with some of the halls, Bridge Hall and a couple other spaces. We're going to remove those and create a brand new Hall 5 and expand it a little bit. So we go from having first-class state-of-the-art space, substandard space, first-class space, to combining it all into first-class space and expanding it a little bit. We're looking at, I think it's 74% occupancy in our space now, or exhibit space now in 2025. In fairness, that includes some activity from the Final Four. So if I take that out, we're still at 68% occupancy in that existing exhibit space. We think there's room to increase event activity. We also know that even though we're at 68, 70, 74% occupancy, which is incredibly high, by the way, we're not entitled to that. We simply, no market, this isn't a San Antonio perspective, but no market can sit there on a product or a particular service or whatever it might be and not invest to maintain their future. We know that in Dallas, they're looking to spend $3.3 to $3.5 billion on reinventing their entire district, to be determined. It's underway now, usually using the PFZ money. Austin's $1.6 billion. Fort Worth is $780 million, and Houston Phase 1 is $1.8 billion. So in Texas, and the whole world is watching this is really an amazing phenomenon with the PFZ money. They're looking at a $7.5 billion plus of investment in the convention industry in markets that you compete directly with. So they have kind of laid down the gauntlet to say, if you want to retain your market share, let alone increase it a little bit, you would have to step up. You can't simply rest on your laurels. I think of other industries, this is just not a convention center question or an arena question or a stadium question. If I'm inventing the next iPhone or if I'm building the next car and you go to Ford and say, stop your investment in creating new product and improving, or Apple, same question. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. We always have to continue to invest to stay competitive. World's changing. How people learn are changing. Convention centers are responding to that. And with the competition that's going on, in order for us to maintain and potentially increase our impact a bit, we're going to have to do something. We're looking at, on the next slide, when I talk about, as far as some of the assumptions, Madam Mayor, we're looking at about a 16% increase in direct spending. That net new direct spending we talked about, all the calculations and the subtractions we go through, we're looking, in exchange for the investments you make, about a 16% increase. Under the do-nothing scenario, working with Visit San Antonio and kind of contracting some of the business appropriately, we're probably an 11% decline. So the gap there is really about a 25 percentage point change in our business for better or for worse. When I build those assumptions into the calculations that we kind of walk through a little bit in terms of the big picture, we're looking at about $108 million in net new direct spending. You can see that on the bottom there. That blends that 16% increase and the 11% decrease. With the indirect and induced spending, that adds another 97. So we're looking at $205 million annually in a mature year of operations of net new direct spending and total output for the community. Now, if this is a 30-year financing project, so if we look at over a 30-year period, we get $8.3 billion. That's the simple math. It's just A times 30. It's not hard, but that's a little bit of cheating because we're counting inflation in those numbers. We can't do that. For true economic impact analysis perspectives, we have to deflate year 30, year 29, 28, et cetera, back to 2025 dollars. And that's where you get that $4.2 billion of 30-year combined total output as a result of the investment in the convention center. Again, that's not all new from where we're at today, but it's new from where we'd go if we did nothing. And the ROI of this it's an interesting discussion. This is not a classic cash-on-cash return on investment. Again, we're asking the visitors to pay for this. So what is the return on investment for the city? I look at it more as a impact metric. So if you wanted to, you could take the $2.2 billion of direct spending, I'm not even going to count the indirect and induced, and you could marry that with the $750 million that's been proposed for the project, and you end up with a ratio of new direct spending to investment of 2.93. Again, that's not a return on investment. This is not cash on cash All the financing gurus out here are going to say, what are you doing here? But it is a useful metric for a community to understand how much economic development are we getting in exchange for the visitor paid for, $750 million in convention assets in that particular case. Now we shift to the Alamo Dome, and it's quite a different story. We're looking at fairly, I would say, modest investments over the next 10, 12 years, perhaps $100 million. And what that's doing for us is the FF&E, the furniture, fixture, equipment in the building will be improved. We're looking at enhanced food and beverage on the lower level, third-party event spaces, digital placemaking investments, it's a trend-forward development, and then upgrading the entry plazas. So basically a 10-year plan to improve our place in the industry relative to some of these brand new sparkling NFL stadiums, for example. We're not going to get there. But if we do nothing, our fear is that we're going to continue to degrade. The building, from an experience perspective, is very challenging. The lines are long for food, the restroom lines are long. It just doesn't work as effectively as it could. And this plan is designed to set a budget for investment to continue to improve the venue. And then ideally what happens after that period of time, we're looking at dipping back into the Final Fours, maybe adding the college football playoffs, the championships, NBA All-Star game. We're not there yet with this investment, but we have set the stage, kept the building in the game, so for the next generation we can invest to start attracting those events. And none of those events are in our economic impact numbers. So what is our incremental impact? And here's the good news, bad news. Good news, bad news is you're doing a really good job. Management's doing well of attracting large stadium concerts and stadium entertainment events. They're getting their share of those events. So even with the $100 million investment we're talking about, we're not looking at doubling our business. We may get one extra concert. We may get one extra international soccer match. But that's kind of where we're going to level off. So you see the impacts, $13 million direct and $11 million, $12 million in indirect, are not massive. But what it again is doing is keeping our building in the game, so to speak, for the next 10 years, preventing it from deteriorating, and very importantly, offering the community a better asset to experience live entertainment. Now I'll one more thing on that ratio we talked about. I did just do the quick math, and if it is $100 million over 10, 12 years, and we're generating $259 million in direct spending, relatively speaking, 259 is not a huge number, but 100 million is a lot less than some of these other projects. So our ratio is actually not bad of what we're spending versus what we're getting in new spending in the community. Music venue. Again, this fills that gap. I just jotted these down: the Sunken Gardens Amphitheater, the Cowboy Dance Hall, R&J Music Pavilion. There are a few venues in that 3,500 to 5,000 seat range. What this supposes is that we're repurposing an existing building that has no purpose today into a venue that's much, much more state-of-the-art for this growing segment of the concert and entertainment industry in that 3,000 to 5,000 to 6,000 seat range. It is a huge market, and we get some of it, but we could definitely get more of that if we were to invest in that. We have talked to some of the promoters that operate these kind of venues, that put events in there, and they're incredibly excited. Some are talking about we could do 80 new concert and entertainment events a year and this kind of thing. We've taken a haircut on that a little bit. I think that might be a little aggressive, but we're running a whole series of these events, filling that gap in space, not competing with the new NBA arena, certainly not competing with the 70,000-seat dome, but serving our niche with respect to that concert and entertainment business. And if we look at what's happening in terms of the impacts, again, they're somewhat modest. We got $13 million in direct spending and $12.7 million in output on an annual basis. You'll notice that's actually less than the dome, the Alamo Dome. And I know a lot of people have said, why is this little venue more impactful than the dome? It's not, not even by a stretch. The new business to the dome isn't as impactful as the new business to this venue, because we are able to get dozens and dozens and dozens of concerts that can't come to the market now, whereas we're only able to get one or so large concert at the dome. So that's why we're seeing that. But again, it's a modest impact on an annual basis, $26.5 million a year in direct and indirect spending, accumulating to $639 million over the course of the 30-year period. Now we look at the mixed-use district itself, and you can see shaded there what we're counting, and you can also see by virtue of that what we're not counting. You don't see any development around the dome. You don't see any development outside of this space, but just talking to economic development and talking to city management, there's a tremendous amount of interest in developing all around this district. The district isn't the sole factor that might spur that, but it certainly is an important factor. And I want to emphasize we're not counting really any of that. We're counting 1,920 residential units, a couple of hotels, 220,000 square feet of office space, in some sense designed to accommodate and complement the convention center, the dome, and the music venues by developing these restaurants and this walkability. I know in the previous session, talking about community outreach, unique and authentic is huge. And for us, this has to be infused with that. And I say that because the convention attendees are looking for that. I don't want to come to San Antonio and not know if I'm in Cleveland or any place. I want to know I'm here. And when you tie in the essence of what's happening with La Villita and El Mercado, all the things that you have are what they want. And making sure that that's part of this is also very, very important. Now, the notion of net new, we've looked at the population growth projections. We've looked at greater affinity for people to live downtown. It's becoming a thing. So when we look at the new residents coming in, we've taken 40% and eliminated it. We've kept the 60. The 40% might be somebody moving from somewhere else into this district, and the place they moved from is never filled again. So we've taken some haircuts there. We've also taken some similar haircuts on any dollar spent in restaurants, retail. Half of that just washes out of the model because we don't want to count displacement from another venue to here. Okay, so with all of that, we look at the
Actually, can you go back to the previous slide?
Yeah, yeah.
Can I ask, because here's an assumption that you've actually, that you've been explicit about. Why did you assume that number of residential units versus a different number?
Yeah, so again, we didn't do the feasibility study, we haven't studied this, but there are firms that have done this. We've talked to them and their clients, and we simply take what they've given us. Here's what we think we will develop over the next 12 years. That's what this is. Okay, and now we look at the impacts of that. If I take this, just imagine you're a young professional and you move into the district and you're spending money in the evenings, you're spending money retail in the area. That's new spending if you're a new person to San Antonio. Same thing with restaurants, same thing with the office workers. And if I take all of that, we're at $178 million in net new direct spending by virtue of the residents, office workers, restaurant activity, retail activity, et cetera. And that leverages up to $277.8 million. And if you look at that over 30 years, it's $4.1 billion. So it's a substantial amount of impact. The financing, again, we're not looking at this and how that relates. I'm more comfortable with the convention center, music venue, and the Alamo Dome and how they're paid for with visitor taxes. But I think a substantial portion of this is private development. So there's some discussion as to how much of this is public-private, but that's to be determined. But still a substantial amount of impact. Getting to the end here, I mentioned the new Spurs Arena, and as I said, we have not studied this at all, but we have seen studies that you've just received that show the net new direct spending is around $225 million a year. We have, through our professional sports analysts, it's not my department, but we do have a professional sports department. They recently conducted a study in Milwaukee that showed, I want to say 186, 87 in same year dollars, million of direct spending. That's Milwaukee, we're San Antonio, so the study did not seem to be substantially out of line with respect to those numbers. So we were willing to present them in here. I will tell you point blank, if there are numbers that we're not comfortable with, they would never see the light of day in this report. So we didn't do the study. I can't tell you we would have come up with 225. It probably would have been in that ballpark. So we agreed that we would include it in the study. Next, we start putting it all together. This does not include the arena. If I look at that direct spending number, $313 million in direct spending from the convention attendees, from that person going to a small concert, from the person going to the new concert at the Alamo Dome or the international soccer match, from that young professional moving to San Antonio and living downtown, working in the district, from out-of-towners coming to the restaurants and the unique retail, All of those things accumulate to $313 million direct spending, $5.4 billion over 30 years. And if you look at the economic output, total output, which is the direct, indirect, and induced, it's $9.4 billion. Of that, this is not additive, of the $9.4 billion, 2.6 would be in earnings. That would support 3,360 jobs over the course of the period. And then city tax collections on a net present value basis of $182 million. And again, going back to that model, and I'm not saying it works this way perfectly, but if there's a way to get the visitor industry to pay for these assets, and you end up pocketing $182 million because of it, those are the things that the markets we work in all over the country are looking to do. Last two slides. Construction impact. We don't know what the construction costs are going to be ultimately, so we looked at it from the perspective of if you spend $1 billion, looking at the share of that $1 billion that might be spent on local labor, local supplies, working with some of the best cost estimators in the country, we've estimated $665 million of that billion will be local impacts. And if you apply the construction multipliers, every billion would be $1.2 billion in spending, not cash in your pocket, but in spending as a result of the construction. And obviously that lasts just through the construction period. And lastly, numbers, they're great, but there are other elements to consider when people look at convention centers. And I'm a numbers guy, so don't get me wrong. But I do want to emphasize that there are transformative effects that take place with the investment in the convention industry. And I look around the country and projects we've done. Boston is one of the most successful convention centers in North America, and you cannot believe what's happened around that convention center. These things spur economic development. You folks go to the convention center. You have a better product, better experience at the new music venue, at the Alamo Dome, so there's a quality of life impact, new visitation. The people that come to some of these big conventions aren't just the average Joe, they're business leaders. I was talking to my friend that runs the convention bureau in Denver, and he said something like 80% of the CEOs of companies that have moved to the Denver area have been to at least one convention in the past. Not to say it's cause and effect, but it's kind of your front door to some respect to important business leaders and residents and other attendees into the market. I love that the economic and workforce development was one of the most important elements in your community outreach. And we've talked to relocation specialists, and one of the first things they do is take their clients into the downtown area. Imagine if they're driving them through the entertainment district. The ability for a CEO or a company to retain and attract the next generation of workforce is benefited by this type of development. Companies can then relocate. Anchor for revitalization all throughout downtown, we talked about that, and then ultimately, civic pride, community pride, call it what you will, but if we've got assets that are degrading, that we're inviting our friends and neighbors from around the country to, versus assets that are state-of-the-art, there is an element of community pride that you can gain by virtue of doing that. So you've seen a quick dive into the numbers, and Mayor, I do appreciate your perspective on the assumptions. The math is not hard. We can show you the events, the attendees, the non-local, the spending per capita, all of that exists, and that'll be in the report so you can dig into that, and you'll see how that backs up some of the broad numbers here.
Great, thank you. I was just in case it informs any other, because you said it was so different than your normal approach, do you often, in the full report on the economic impact analysis, you mentioned that you reviewed the summary findings of the Spurs consultants' economic impact analysis. Is that normal practice for you or would you traditionally do an independent economic impact analysis?
Either or. I will say a lot of our clients or potential clients that have spent money on a study aren't excited about spending money on another same study. So we get asked to comment on, are the assumptions reasonable, et cetera, et cetera. It's not a business we like to be in. We have a rigorous study process for anything we do. No stone is left unturned in terms of understanding what the demand is. I assume their consultants did the same thing.
Assume?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't do the study, so I don't know. So we don't typically like to opine on another firm's study because we don't know the level of research, but there is a thread of a link between one of our recent studies and their study. 189, 225. Okay, these are measuring the exact same metric in two different markets, both for a brand new NBA arena. And they came out close enough that we were willing to say, we don't think that particular result is unreasonable. We're willing to put it in our report. There are cases where we have not done that. And this particular case, we felt it was appropriate.
And in case it answers anyone else's question, did you review the Spurs Consultants' January 2025 economic impact analysis? Not the summary findings, but not the full report that we were
No,
provided?
It's fairly recently landed on our desk. I did go through it, and again, I did confirm their net new direct spending number. That's the hook to our reports. And so I think that's solid. I have not read the entire study in detail. I'll turn it over to Ben Gorzel.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. I know we've spent a little bit of time here going through presentations. Mine's not too long, so I'm going to recap, really spending some more time on the structure for the arena itself and trying to go into a little bit more detail in terms of how that is working or how we're proposing that that works. So again, just a quick update, not anything new on this slide, but just demonstrating that the cost of the arena is still projected between $1.3 billion and $1.5 billion. Obviously, more work to be done here in terms of narrowing that range. We're working, as you can see, towards the lower end of that range at $1.3 billion, but we've got more work to do as that proceeds forward. The three primary funding entities here are the Spurs, the San Antonio Spurs, with $500 million contribution plus a obligation to cover any cost overruns once that project budget is set. A county financing that would yield $311 million towards the facility. And then our range is what you saw a couple of weeks ago at $350 million to $500 million. Now, I'm going to take each of these and just break them down just a little bit more detail. So the first two, when we talk about the Spurs, this is coming from the team. So this will be debt that the team will take on to make a $500 million contribution to the cost of the arena. And again, I mentioned they're going to be required to cover any cost overruns. As you saw yesterday, the county did call for a venue tax election in November. The venue tax is really comprised of two different elements. There is currently a 1.75% hot tax for any hotels within the county. In that action that the court took yesterday, they're proposing to increase that to 2%, which is the maximum capacity left under state law. So that was part of the action they took yesterday. The other part of the venue tax is the motor vehicle rental tax, or MVRT. So those two components broadly make up the venue tax. The county would use, if that election is successful in November, they would use those two funding sources to do a bond issue that would yield that $311 million contribution to the arena. And of course, there are two propositions. I'm only talking about the one for the arena. There is a second one associated with the Frost Bank Center and the rodeo. Before I go into the city's proposed financing structure, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the elements that make that up. You've seen a version of this slide before. This is the project finance zone. Really, really important tool for us that the state has allowed us to have access to. This allows us to capture the state's hotel-associated revenue for 30 years within a zone. The zone we've created is in that circle you see on the map there. To be real clear, this doesn't affect anybody in terms of how much you pay. This is a redirection of state revenues into qualified projects. So there's no increase in the rate. It's just capturing dollars that can be reinvested into facilities that support that industry. That hotel-associated revenue is made up of the state's hot tax, state sales tax, state's mixed beverage sales tax, and the state's mixed beverage gross receipts tax. That only applies to the hotels or to businesses that operate in those hotels. The council did create this zone in May of 2025, so that's our base year. So starting in 2026, we will collect the state's hotel-associated revenue incremental growth for 30 years. Think about it like a TERS a little bit. It's going to start small because it's incremental, but it will grow over time. And again, it's going to be a really important resource as we move forward and talk about funding facilities, like the arena, like the convention center, like the Alamo Dome. The designation that we made with that creation of the zone in 2020 in May was a convention center complex. That was important because it gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of how we can use these PFZ dollars among those three facilities, the convention center, the arena, and the Alamo Dome. There's a little bit, I'll just call it a shot clock. We've talked about it before under state law. Once you create the zone, you have 5 years to commence a project. If you don't commence a project that you've designated, the zone automatically dissolves. If we begin a project, the way it's set up, it stays, the zone and the dollars stay with that project. We want flexibility to move it, so we redesignated the zone as a complex, and that allows us to have flexibility to move those dollars among these three facilities. Wanted to touch on a little bit the Hemisphere TERS. So this is a map of the existing TERS boundaries. It was created in February of 2017. It is bounded on the east by IH 37. Kind of follows on the south Cesar Chavez. You see it kind of wrap around the GSA properties, or General Services Administration properties, to the south. And then to the north, just slightly beyond Commerce Street. And then to the west, a little bit beyond South Alamo Street. So that's kind of the core of the district. It just doesn't include the east side of the freeway where the Alamo Dome is and the Alamo Dome parking lots are. But wanted to give you a little bit of context in terms of the TERS, what's in it today. Again, created in 2017 with a base value of $43.1 million. So that means we're going to capture anything incremental above that in the TERS for property taxes. Over the last 8 years, we've captured $121.7 million in incremental property tax value or taxable value. That would, if you looked at it in 2025, the tax increment that went into the TERS is roughly $650,000. This is as of 2025. There is construction on the western end of the zone. We have the Zachary Hotel going in. That's not reflected here because that hasn't hit the tax roll yet. So there'll be a little bit of a bump once that comes online in the next couple of years. Let me talk a little bit about mixed-use development opportunities and what we have been doing when we talk about guarantees on new development. What you see shaded here on this slide are the opportunities around the arena for new development. These are the discussions we've been having with the Spurs around guarantees on new development that would then support a bond issue that we would use to make a contribution to the arena, would be one of the funding sources. It's about 18 acres. It surrounds the arena there, and then you can see it picks up the current General Services Administration properties, the current admin building, federal admin building there just north of Cesar Chavez, and then the two parking lots to the south. And I'm going to come back and talk about new development in a second on a subsequent slide. So when we look at those elements, how do we create a city financing to make a contribution to the arena, and how do we pay for that debt? This structure uses rent from the Spurs, so they would have to pay a lease rent for the new arena. That would be one of the revenue streams we would use to repay the debt. We would use the Hemisphere TERS, both the existing, not a lot in there currently, but the new development would be a key piece of that guarantee. The property taxes from that new development just inside of that TERS, along with the ground leases for that private development, would also be a revenue source that we would use for the bond financing or to repay the debt. And then the project financing zone, which are the state revenues that I mentioned a minute ago. All of those sources combined, we would then use to leverage into a bond issue that would allow us to make a contribution to the arena. In terms of some key terms that I'll just highlight as we talk about next steps and potentially moving towards the negotiation of a term sheet, there's a couple things I want to highlight here. One, total cost of arena will obviously be important. I talked about we're still at a range. We need to tighten that range up a little bit and make sure we understand what we're getting in terms of an arena facility for the cost of that project. We talked about the Spurs' contribution to the arena. They've talked about that, $500 million plus cost overruns. Spurs arena rent, as we have talked with them, we are asking them to pay more rent than they pay today. and we also want to include an escalation factor so that it increases over time. Guaranteed new development and taxable value. I'm going to pause for a second and just try to explain a little bit. I know there's been a lot of conversation around the contribution to the arena from the Spurs and then this new development piece. So as I went over on the previous slides, there's a $500 million. They're going to borrow money, the Spurs, and contribute $500 million to the cost of the arena facility, their contribution. For our financing, we're also asking them to guarantee new development inside of the Hemisphere Tours. That slide that I showed with the I'm going to call it phase one piece of that, that was highlighted there, where there are opportunities for new development. What we have been talking with them about, and based on our conversations with them, along with information we've gotten from their consultant that does work in the real estate area, RCL Co., they provide us a development schedule. We're looking at $1.4 billion in taxable value over a 12-year period. So that's 2030 to 2042. And I'm going to break that down into two phases because it's important from a financing perspective. Phase one is about $500 million of that $1.4 billion we're asking them to put in at the same time the arena goes in. So fast forward to 2028, if this all moves forward, we're getting ready to do a bond issue. We would want to see, and the developer would have to have, along with the Spurs, they would have to be ready to proceed on that first phase of new development. That would be a condition of us moving forward with a bond financing. If they're not ready to move forward, we don't issue bonds. So that's the first part. It's important because it helps us from a credit perspective in terms of how bondholders look at that debt, knowing that that development will go in at the same time as the arena. That's an important piece. The second piece I'm going to lump into phase two. So I mentioned 2030 to 2042, 12-year period. First phase, roughly $500 million in taxable value goes in with the arena. That happens by about 2031, 2032. That remaining 10-year period would be that remaining $900 million in taxable value. That's what we're asking them, the Spurs, and their developer to guarantee. Two pieces. One, once we land on the development schedule for that 12-year period, it's a guarantee on that development schedule. And then secondly, we want to guarantee on the projected revenue. Once we calculate that at that point in time, we want to guarantee on that revenue stream. Why is that important? Well, because we're using it to backstop these bonds. This is how we're going to pay these bonds. We don't want a scenario where we think the thing's going to, we think a piece of property is going to come on the tax roll at $400 million and it comes on at $250 million. We're not going to take that risk. We're asking them to take that risk. So I wanted to separate and spend a little bit of time separating the component of the direct cash funding that will go into the arena versus the guarantees that we're asking for on the new development around the arena over that 12-year period. Obviously, another key term that many of you have spent a lot of time talking about is community benefits. During the last presentation, the city manager talked about a recommended approach where we negotiate a dollar commitment over 30 years. We've had discussions with the Spurs on that. They're open to that approach, but we've got more work to do on that as well. And then I'll wrap up here on this slide. So really, with part of this briefing, we're asking for you all, for city council direction on the 2 points you see here on the slide. Direction to the city manager to share a term sheet with the Spurs for a proposed deal for the downtown arena under the structure that has been presented today that I just went over. And then direction to the city managers to negotiate the term sheet with the Spurs for consideration by you all later this month. So those are the 2 points we'd like to get your feedback and direction on today. So Mayor and council members, that wraps up our presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Ben, can you go the previous slide, the key city terms? So when we talked about the guaranteed new development and taxable value, I know you just mentioned $1.4 billion. The only thing that we have from the Spurs, though, right, is, and sometimes you just got to speak 78245, and that's a bag of cash, which is $500 million, and then $500 million in guaranteed development. That's the plus the $60 million in community benefits agreement, right? That's what we have on paper from the Spurs, correct?
So, Mayor, there's two pieces to that. So there was a letter that the Spurs provided 2 weeks ago, I think, roughly, that referenced the $500 million contribution plus the new development at $500 million. What we have been working with with the Spurs on, and our discussions have been what I described, the $1.4 billion, and then what we have from their consultant is I'm going to call it preliminary development schedule for that 12-year period that gets to $1.4 billion over 12 years. It has a mix of hotel use, office space, housing, and retail embedded in that. That's preliminary.
Yep.
It will change once we get a developer there. But to your point, Mayor, that part will have to be solidified in a term sheet if this all moves forward.
But at this point, the only thing we have on paper in terms of guaranteed development from the Spurs is the 500, right, and their physical contribution, and then the 500 in guaranteed development. And we asked them to, I think we talked about, we asked them to put the 1.4 billion in writing, and we have not received that. Is that correct?
As a follow-up to the letter from 2 weeks ago, no, I have not received a follow-up on that.
Okay. So these numbers then are what we would like, but it's not necessarily what the Spurs have agreed to, correct?
I would,
Unless the Spurs would like to speak.
Mayor, for your record, Bobby Pettis, San Antonio Spurs. Mayor, Council, thank you for the time. Really appreciate all the extra work you guys have done on this. Mayor, we have delivered a schedule, and that development schedule that includes $1.4 billion, we will agree to. And in this ongoing discussion we've had with your team, it's two phases. 2031 has been pointed out is that first approximately $500 million schedule. The second phase through 2042 is the balance of it. Cameron Pollock's here today. He'll address the body as he speaks. He's happy to come up now and share more numbers with you, but that is part of the process in the proposed schedule. Now, I'll also address, Mayor, the method in which we got the request to put it in writing. We've had a lot of meetings with your team. We have shared schedules, documents, proposals, very in-depth, and had hours and hours of conversations. And in those verbal conversations, we have committed not only to the $500 million by 2031, we've also committed to the higher amount that Ben's talked about through 2042. So I do want to be clear. I don't want to step away from the dais. I'll answer your questions, of course. I don't want to step away from the dais and leave the impression that we have not made that representation, because we have. And we'll continue to, and we hope that after this discussion today, we can finalize the term sheet with your internal lawyers, your external lawyers. They can work with ours, and we'll bring something in front of you on August 21st so we can have action.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that, because I know we asked, I think, yesterday evening for that in writing and did not receive it. So thank you.
Mayor, for clarity,
Yeah.
we provided that schedule probably a month ago.
Okay.
And so it's been discussed
Okay.
in great detail.
Okay.
And even prior to the issuance of Peter's letter, that 2031 number of $500 million has been conceptually agreed to by us, and as well as the balance of the development has been tentatively agreed to by us. I think in order to further the conversation, we're asking for that direction from council to the manager and the city attorney and Ben, so we can get this into a final LOI.
City Manager, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mayor. So let's just level set here. Your question about the $500 million guaranteed development in the letter and the reconciliation between development schedules that we have had from the Spurs, I think the difference is that beyond getting to actual term negotiations and into a term sheet, that's the gap that exists right now. Ben has, as he said in his presentation, we've had the development schedule in our conversations with the Spurs. The fact of the matter is that from our perspective, in any scenario that we run, that development perspective and those assumptions in the term sheet, that guaranteed revenue or taxable value is not going to be $500 million from our perspective. It's going to be 1.4. So sharing documents and comparing them to letters That's where the gap is, and I think that really is to the point of we need to negotiate that term sheet, lay out those actual terms with the contractual language, not spreadsheets or so forth, but just what is the guarantee, what are the dollar amounts, when do they need to be done by, and who's going to back them up. So.
No, we also have a presentation, or at least the gentleman is here who did the stone analysis regarding the spurs. Again, my colleagues and I just received this yesterday, but if there's something that person would like to share regarding their analysis, because as CSL mentioned, they did not review it in depth.
Signed up as a group, and he has 9 minutes, but I think David's ready to present. David's in the room. Cameron Pollock has also signed up as a group, and so subject to the chair, they can come up right now and share some information with you regarding our economic impact study, which, again, I'll add that to the list. Of some of the collaboration, I think your CSL expert laid that out, that David Stone has had conversations and discussions. And Cameron Pollock, who's also been present, he's with RCLCO, and has been part of our team for some time. So they're here today, subject to your approval.
Yep, David Stone,
Hear from him there?
please. Yeah.
Cameron, you're first.
Mayor Jones, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Cameron Pavelic. As was mentioned, I'm a principal with RCLCO, a real estate advisory firm. We've been working with the Spurs as it relates to the mixed-use district surrounding the arena, specifically as it relates to the tax increment, as well as the development partner selection. While I'm working on this on a professional capacity, this is deeply personal to me. I was born and raised in San Antonio, and while my professional work with RCLCO has taken me across the country, I can say without hesitation, San Antonio is the most culturally rich, community-driven city I've ever seen. I want to start by recognizing the fiscal challenges that have been laid out before this body and the understandable skepticism that has been expressed. I share your belief that any public investment must deliver measurable, accountable returns, especially in a time of tight budgets and community need. I wanted to use my time to offer a perspective on how the current framework under discussion addresses the key concerns raised under this chamber and how it has accountability at its core. First, let me start by addressing one of the most common misconceptions up front. This proposal does not raise taxes on San Antonio residents, nor does it pull existing resources from essential city services. The current framework envisions the projected funding through, as discussed previously, a recapture of state hotel occupancy tax, new taxes generated from the sports and entertainment district, private contributions, and other project-specific revenue streams tied to the development. This is not about shifting money away from existing programs. It's about generating new revenue from new activity tied directly to the project, an outcome that simply wouldn't be possible without the Spurs acting as the anchor and the catalyst. Secondly, there's a perception that this development doesn't support core public services. Respectfully, that's inaccurate. In addition to the TERS, the County HOT, the PFZ, and other arena funding mechanisms that have already been discussed, the Sports and Entertainment District, enabled by the proposed arena, is projected to generate more than $580 million of revenue for various city entities or organizations: University Health System, Alamo Community College, VIA, the Convention Center and Expansion, arts and culture programs, and many other critical community services. Additionally, the development is projected to generate approximately $150 million of additional funding for Bexar County in addition to the County HOT, as well as $150 million in additional funds for the state of Texas in addition to the PFZ. These are direct public benefits that impact lives every day. Far from draining public resources, this project helps fund long-term investment on public ecosystem that supports health, education, transportation, and mobility. Third, I want to address the core question that, Mayor, you brought up here, which is the guarantees. I recognize that these kind of projects have historically led to overpromising and under-delivering. There's a history of it across the country. What makes this proposal different is that the structure currently being discussed, in addition to the Spurs' financial commitments to the arena itself, is also the mechanism that Ben discussed previously for the Spurs and its partners to backstop TERS revenues and commitments to make ground lease payments even if surrounding development phases take longer to materialize. So in addition to their contributions to the arena, the community benefits agreement, the Spurs and their partners are committing the $500 million in the surrounding development for that first phase, and the $1.4 billion in total investment at build-out. These are guarantees that the Spurs and their partners are making around this development. So when it's asked whether these funds are real, these funds are intended to be guaranteed and written on paper for all to see. This means that regardless of the ultimate build-out, the structure requires that the incremental tax revenues projected to flow into the TERS are guaranteed. The tax revenue is not dependent on market timing. It is built into the agreement. While I understand the details still need to be worked out, the core principles of the proposal represent a serious commitment to ensure public obligations are met. And in my professional opinion, the proposed structure is built on a long-term alignment between the city, the Spurs, and your future partners. This is what accountability looks like. This public-private partnership. And the Spurs and the city of San Antonio are working to set a new benchmark for future P3s across the country. Lastly, this land has been vacant for decades, generating no tax revenue. Not for a lack of ambition, but because it lacked a catalytic anchor willing to make long-term financial commitments necessary to overcome the challenges of a tertiary market. The Spurs are that anchor. But they're far more than just a sports franchise. They're a San Antonio institution with over 50 years of civic engagement. Their involvement in this project brings a level of credibility, momentum, and investment that few others can, and helps bring the capital markets to this project to make this investable. The key point is this: without the Spurs, this large land block likely stays dormant for years to come with limited public benefit. But through this partnership and with the Spurs, it becomes a vibrant mixed-use district with public benefit built into the foundation. This isn't about choosing between an arena and core public services. It's about leveraging a thoughtful and well-structured opportunity to create lasting public value without sacrificing existing services. What's being contemplated here is a model that protects public dollars, provides long-term economic alignment and returns, and places community benefit at its core. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. With that, we'll go into the public comment section. Okay.
Your Honor, would you like to hear from Stone Planning?
Sure, please. Thank you.
Thank you all. My name is David Stone. My firm is Stone Planning. I have been working in the planning of sports and entertainment, largely sports and entertainment facilities for over 25 years. Some recent work has included the NBA's newest arena, the Intuit Dome in Inglewood outside of LA, and the NHL's newest arena, Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, both on behalf of those respective cities. What I've been asked to do for the Spurs is an economic and fiscal impact study for the past operations of the team and arena at the Frost Bank Center since 2002, and the future operations, including the ongoing operations of the Frost Bank Center and a new arena. We've looked at it from both the city's perspective and the county's perspective. I'm maybe, of course, going to focus on the city numbers here, but just want to quickly mention that the county numbers are relatively similar. The spending numbers at the county level are slightly higher. The tax numbers are different just because of different taxes at the city and county level, particularly as they relate to arena-related spending, and the jobs numbers are similar. But again, I'll focus on the city level numbers here. I'm glad John gave his economic impact 101, so I don't have to, and I'll just focus on the numbers here. I understand you all have recently got a copy of my full study. I'll focus on some of the high level numbers, some of the conclusions from the study. So really this page, I'll break it up into 3 sections. The first one at the top, actually I'll stop there for a second. I mentioned we looked at the past operations since 2002 when the Frostbank Center opened, we looked at 20 seasons, which doesn't include 2 COVID-related seasons and the most recent basketball season because we were completing our study during that season. So from 2002 through the 2023-2024 season, again without 2 COVID years, and then the future scenario with the new arena folded in. The top part of this page, which is the orange numbers, looks at the cumulative 20-year impacts, the net new spending to the city, which is spending from, as John kind of talked about in his overview, spending from outside of the city coming into the city at over $9 billion. The resulting tax impact is $58 million, and these are city-level taxes only, everything from sales taxes to hotel taxes to taxes for education, transit, et cetera. That is, again, cumulative over the 20 seasons we looked at. If I go down to the lower left of the page in the black numbers and black text, that is a single-year average based on the last 4 years, again, throwing out the 2 COVID-related years. But for those 4 years, an average of $578 million of net new spending to the city and $3.7 million in new taxes to the city. We have numbers for hotel, 21,000 new hotel room nights, approximately 1,000 jobs to local residents. Then shifting over to the right side, compares those numbers to the future scenario, again, ongoing operations of the Frostbank Center plus a new arena, that $578 million in new spending to the city increases to nearly $900 million. Again, this is 1 year, the first year of the new arena's operations, which we have projected to usage, events, attendance increasing over time. So this is the first year where, again, the event and usage numbers are lower than they would be in some of the out years, but increasing to almost $900 million, an incremental increase of over $300 million from the current scenario. Taxes, city-level taxes increasing to $4.2 million. The jobs, a modest increase to about 1,100 from 1,000. The hotel room nights increasing significantly. And the bottom of this slide is that kind of reddish ribbon is to indicate the possibility of hosting an NBA All-Star Weekend here in San Antonio, which has not been a possibility in the past due to the rodeo's presence in the Frostbank Center in February. That $300 million number is just to show what Indianapolis, which hosted the All-Star Weekend last year, so 2024, 2 All-Star Weekends, 2 years ago, 2 All-Star Weekends ago, their estimate of the economic impact to Indianapolis was $300 million. One last thing to say, these numbers all focus on the ongoing annual operations of the arena/arenas, plural. We're not showing here, but it is in the report, the one-time construction impacts from the construction project of the arena, which based on local participation would be in the hundreds of millions of dollars for local companies and thousands of jobs for local residents. So that is my time. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Stone, I briefly looked at your analysis. Your analysis assumes a $1.3 billion arena. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay. When you go back to can you bring up that slide, please? His slide that he just shared. Well, the question is the same. How do these numbers change if it is a different cost arena, $1 billion or $950? Should we just reduce that by a third, for example?
I would change them by the same percentage, yes.
By that same percentage,
Yeah.
okay. So we changed each of these numbers, obviously minus the NBA.
Assuming, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, no,
Assuming
please.
the local participation stays the same, yes.
Okay, understood. Thank you. We have several folks signed up to speak, and I will just go down this list. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. 2 minutes, please. All individuals will have 2 minutes to speak, and groups of 3 or more will have a total of 6 minutes. Written comment may be submitted to the city clerk for distribution to the council. The playing of recordings is not permitted. You may use or cede your time to someone else, but not both. If you are ceding your time or receiving someone else's time, let me know because they must be on the list and present. So the first person is Nathan Whitman, followed by Jenny Carnes.
Madam Mayor, City Council members, thank you for having these debates. Just wanted to make a few points as a local businessman who employs folks here in San Antonio and is also working here in San Antonio. One thing that's been mentioned is that this project would only bring low-wage jobs. Well, the only thing I would submit to that is, well, where else would the additional jobs come from? And why would those wages be any higher? If the City Council is going to be debating on this project, not on raising wages. And so I submit that by bringing additional jobs into the city, that we're going to create a competitive market that could in turn have the wage effect that people are looking for. I would also submit that, as everyone knows, investing in something is never comfortable. Whether you're going to be purchasing a car, you're going to be investing in the stock market, it comes with risk every time. But without investing and without change, there's no possibility of growth. Your money's just going to sit where it is. It's never going to grow. Your car is just going to continue to devalue unless you're putting or investing money into it. In downtown San Antonio, I believe, is a strong return on investment that benefits the entire community. This project will be enjoyed by all San Antonio, as well as the economic impact. As a business operator downtown and someone that lives downtown, a citizen of San Antonio for many years, I support the continued process of this project.
Jenny Carnes, followed by Elena Wells, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor Jones, City Council members, and City leadership. My name is Jenny Carnes, and I'm the President and CEO of your 41-year-old nonprofit, San Antonio Sports. Our mission is to transform this community through the power of sport, with healthier kids and families, places to play, and events that impact. Which is why, as a citizen of Council District 10 and a passionate advocate for San Antonio, through the efforts of our organization, I strongly believe in and support the Sports and Entertainment District to include a new downtown arena for our beloved San Antonio Spurs. Spurs Sports and Entertainment have long been partners of our organization through board engagement, financial contributions to our NCAA Final Four hosting obligations, supporting our youth programs, and now partnering with our San Antonio Sports All-Star Basketball High School Series. With that said, it's not just what SS&E is doing to support San Antonio sports. They are doing it on their own for our community through the efforts of Spurs Give, the refurbishment of over 19 local basketball courts and parks, and their vision around opening the old practice facility to serve as a community impact hub, providing countless resources. I truly believe that the time is now for all of us to come together to ensure that the Sports and Entertainment District gets across the finish line, and not just for a new Spurs arena and the transformation of my home away from home at the Alamo Dome, but for the future growth and betterment of our city with generational impact to come. I would like to thank Mayor Jones, members of our City Council, Judge Peter Sakai, and County Commissioners, along with SS&E, for seeing the importance of this ambitious vision and taking our moment in time to do what is best for San Antonio through the transformational power of sport. Thank you for your time, and go Spurs, go.
Elena Wells, followed by Charles Brem, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor Jones, City Council members, and City leadership. My name is Elena Wells. I'm a proud San Antonio native, a resident of District 9, and the Executive Director for the San Antonio Local Organizing Committee, most recently for the NCAA Men's Final Four. First, I want to thank you all, along with Judge Peter Sakai, County Commissioners, and Spurs Sports and Entertainment Ownership for embracing this vision for our city. This April, during Final Four weekend, we saw a glimpse of what a thriving sports and entertainment district could look like, not just for visitors, but for residents. Now imagine that same energy every weekend. At SALOC, we work with national and international event organizers to bring major events to San Antonio. The NCAA events alone have generated nearly $1 billion in local economic impact over the past 27 years, and there are more on the horizon. Event organizers consistently prioritize three things: quality hotels, memorable experiences for fans and student athletes, and first-class venues. Our walkable downtown with the Alamo Dome, Convention Center, and Hemisphere all within a half-mile radius is a major competitive advantage. Expanding that footprint with a new arena, a theater, and continued investment in our existing venues, like the Alamo Dome, will open the door for even more world-class events. These events bring more than just visitors. They bring invaluable media exposure, showcasing San Antonio on a global stage. As it was noted earlier today, with increasing competition across Texas and the nation, this project is more important than ever. It directly responds to feedback that we've heard from event organizers and ensures that San Antonio remains a contender for premier sporting and entertainment events. We're excited to continue to build on our reputation for delivering unforgettable experiences and to help lead this bold new step.
Thank you. Charles Brem, followed by Mateo Lopez.
Mayor, Councilman, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Project Marvel. As a major stakeholder in downtown San Antonio and developer of substantial properties here in town, I'd like to speak on the perspective of how that might influence my business and what I do in downtown. As you may know, I was one of the developers of the Thompson Hotel here in downtown and undertaking a large project here as well currently. I wanted to touch on two broad perspectives that influence what I do every day. One of those is the competition that we face from other cities around the country in their forward visions and their commitment to what they are doing in their cities to make them attractive to not only visitors, but investors, and how it might benefit the local community as well. If you look at other cities like Austin, Fort Worth, Oklahoma City, Denver, Charlotte, all of these cities have made major commitments to their downtown areas and what they're doing. You look at the Brickyard in Oklahoma City. Who would even imagine the commitment that they have made? It's massive. And if we don't as a city take that same attitude, we're going to fall behind. And that affects us all. It affects our entire community. The other issue that I deal with on a regular daily basis is that from the capital community. Whether you be talking about debt or investment or what it takes to grow, you are being looked at as a city and how you're looking for the future of that city. These are people that are putting large amounts of money behind you and into projects that you're doing, and you have to sell the city first. And so I think those are things that we need to keep in mind besides the detail of what we're looking at here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mateo Lopez, followed by Thomas Castillo.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor Jones, Terry, Rick, members of the council. I have been a downtown ambassador for 6 years now, and as my good friends behind me can tell you, I have done all the jobs from landscaping to maintenance to pressure washing to most recently our quality of life team. But the job that I have had the most fun in doing has been our hospitality ambassadors, or what we call the PSRs, public service reps. And one of my favorite memories came actually a few months after I started working with Centro. It was at Alamo Plaza. Our ambassadors are in zones, so I had the Alamo zone. And it was after dinner, and I was standing at the Alamo, and this big family, about 10 or 20 kids and adults alike, and they exited. You have the Alamo on your left, and the mall is to the right. And they exited the mall and came to the Alamo, and the kiddos are running around, and then the adults are looking at the scenery. And the patriarch of their family actually came up to me, and he started asking me the questions, what is this place, what does it mean? And I started explaining our Texas history, our Alamo history, and he's smiling, and he actually kind of interrupted me and said, well, that's all well and good, but I know this stuff before. And I said, well, what am I, chopped liver? But I didn't say that, but I asked him, well, how did you learn about Texas history? And what he had told me is that his father, when the Alamo movie came out in 1960s, he actually took his family from New Delhi to Texas to San Antonio just to come and see the Alamo, the real deal. And now him, the son that became the father, that became the patriarch, actually was continuing that tradition of taking his family to come see our city. And to have me, a wet behind the ears freshman ambassador, talking to this man and his family from several thousand miles, that perfect night when I punched in for work and was able to make that connection with them. And I think if Project Marvel, if we give them the tools to be successful, we can triple those hundreds of thousands of experiences that Centro has been creating for every single day, every single night since 1999. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thomas Castillo, followed by Nick Valdez.
Hello. Sorry, I'm nervous. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. My name is Thomas Castillo. I have served as a Centro ambassador for 19 years. I reside in District 5. My role, among others, my latest role is data analyst. But the main role of Centro is to keep it clean, safe, and welcoming for everyone. I walk the streets every day, talk to residents, visitors, business owners. What I consistently hear is that people want a downtown that feels alive, but also feels cared for. The sports and entertainment district is about more than big events. It's about the public spaces in between, plaza, sidewalks, parks. Those are areas where people experience our city. And these are areas where we work hardest. This project means more investment in those public spaces. It means better lighting, walkability, more reasons for people to stay and explore. And it brings pride to the places we already love. And it brings more people to love them too. A great example comes to mind. I was also at the plaza, the Alamo Plaza, and I ran into a family of 5. Father, big Spurs fan, came to see the Spurs, brought his whole family with him. And so instead of just the Spurs game, it became the Magic's Children Theater, the Alamo, the Market Square, and the Riverwalk, which my supervisor reminds me that 100 years ago, that was set to get filled up and turned into just completely paved over. So imagine that. But my point is, when downtown thrives, all of San Antonio benefits. As someone who serves on the front lines of downtown San Antonio every day, I support this district, and we're ready to help make it shine.
Thank you. Nick Valdez, followed by Pat Frost. Pat Frost, please, followed by Frey Reyes. There's Pat. Here's Pat. Okay. Great.
Good afternoon. My name is Pat Frost, and I'm chair of the Greater San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. And I am here to do thank yous, not you shoulds. The person that did the best on the you should was in Sunday's San Antonio Express News, Councilwoman Carr's op-ed piece, and I encourage you to read it. I thank all of you all, just like Bobby Pettis said, for all the time you all have put into this and the due diligence, so appreciate it. I also thank your city staff. It is the best I have ever been around of both private and nonprofit. Fantastic. Listen, I do believe they have a great recommendation for you. I want to also thank the Spurs. The investment that they have committed to our community just is staggering. We need to remember the Spurs are now approximately half owned by out-of-towners because of COVID. Me as a season ticket holder, I went over a year without having to spend a dime, but yet those players got all the money and had to invest in with these folks, which I understand are very good partners, particularly because they are supporting the Holts in this major investment. And Peter yesterday at Commissioner's Court described how much more that is than other small market NBA teams. I also want to give a thank you to Cops Metro. You all listened to them, and I agree with it, of taking the needed infrastructure needs of downtown around Hemisphere Park to put that in the bond issue where you're going to look at issues all around the city. And I do believe that is the right process. I want to also give a thank you to county staff and commissioners and, of course, Judge Sakai, with their efforts of being able, with 25% of this, if the voters approve, giving the voters the opportunity. But also want to thank the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo with their commitment to make sure that the area that the Spurs are leaving will continue to thrive. Finally, I want to say thank you, hopefully to all of you all on August 21st after you pass the term sheet presented. Thank you.
Frey Reyes, followed by Charles Daniels. Charles Daniels, followed by Molly J.
As a 40-year resident of San Antonio, today I have something simple to say. And may my poor words and tongue not get in the way. As a tribute to Miss Emily Edwards, let what I say be heard. No, I speak not for others here or there.
so that we can move forward. Thank you very much.
Tim Morrow, followed by Sarah Karabias Rush, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Tim Morrow. I'm President and CEO of San Antonio Zoo, a place where San Antonians have visited for over 111 years. We are part of District 1 and District 2. I'm also the former chair of San Antonio Visitor Alliance, the current chair of Texas Travel Alliance, and I'm the vice chair of Visit San Antonio. I've been working in the tourism industry in San Antonio since 1991, starting as a lifeguard, watching pools, cleaning pathways and bathrooms, and working my way up through 19 years at SeaWorld before taking on my role at the San Antonio Zoo 10 years ago. Beyond tourism, I volunteer in the community, serving on boards and committees such as those as UTSA and the city of San Antonio, and I do all this because of my love for the city. I first moved to San Antonio as a second grader and instantly fell in love with the Spurs. I now take my children to Spurs games when I can and have enjoyed watching them grow up cheering for San Antonio's only major league team. I can tell you that keeping the Spurs in a new arena downtown is critical for San Antonio for many reasons. One, great cities need great downtowns where people can live, work, and play. The Spurs and Project Marvel do that for our city. The economic impact the Spurs provide our city, the recognition our city gets from the Spurs around the country and around the nation. People know San Antonio because of the San Antonio Spurs. The quality of life this provides when corporations are looking to move to San Antonio, and that is a big one for operators such as San Antonio Zoo, the nonprofit. We depend on visitation and donations to grow, and having a strong corporate community is critical to our success, and that is magnified across all of the arts and cultural institutions in San Antonio. Tourism is critical for the success of San Antonio on a greater scale than our peers in Texas, which is why projects like a new arena, an updated Alamo Dome, an updated convention center, and more amenities for tourists and locals are so critical across a broad spectrum. In closing, I ask that you all work to build San Antonio through growth projects such as Downtown Arena and work to maximize the economic impact of these projects for the betterment of our community in all corners. I thank you, and I ask that you support staff moving forward with negotiations and returning to council with a negotiated term sheet in the next couple of weeks. I wanted to also mention the Commanders, who I can't stand because I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, and I'm glad someone brought them up. That's an example of a place that lost their team 30 years ago and are still trying to get them back.
Sarah Karabias Rush, followed by Benito Ocovio.
Honorable Mayor and council members, thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Karabias Rush, a proud District 1 resident and the president and CEO of Greater SATX Regional Economic Partnership. As the lead economic development organization for our 10-county Greater San Antonio region, our mission is to grow quality jobs for the people who live here today and those we will welcome in the future. Right now, San Antonio is a region on the rise. We're the fastest growing job market in Texas and the third fastest in the nation. Wages are climbing faster here than anywhere else in the state. The average San Antonio worker now earns more than in cities like Las Vegas and Miami, and that is because of the investments we have made as a community in workforce development and education. And our jobs pipeline has never been stronger, with companies from around the world considering investing upwards of 20,000 jobs in our pipeline today and $14 billion in capital investment. These potential jobs, when realized, will drive economic mobility for all San Antonio residents. That's momentum that we can't afford to lose. When I talk with companies from around the world, they all tell me the same thing. Talent drives their business decisions, and today's talent wants more than jobs. They want vibrant, connected communities. This isn't just about a venue, it's about building a place where people want to live, work, and stay. 74% of top site selection consultants strongly agree that community development is critical to winning jobs. This project delivers all three. A strong headquarters base is one of the most powerful economic drivers we can build. For every 100 jobs in a corporate HQ, 400 more are created in the community. That's how we create more jobs, by this type of an investment, opening more doors of opportunity and helping more San Antonians get ahead. This is a generational opportunity, and it tells the world that San Antonio is ready to compete at the highest level and that we are willing to invest in ourselves and think boldly about our future. Thank you.
Benito Ocovio, followed by Eddie Aldrete. Eddie Aldrete, followed by Jesse Sades.
Good afternoon, Mayor Jones, members of the council, Manager Walsh. Great cities rise from moments in time when those cities have chosen to invest in their future. What we're discussing here today is one such moment. San Antonio is already a city that's rich in history, culture, tradition, and business. And part of our challenge, and I think what seems to be coming together, is balancing both venue life and daily life in this downtown area. On a personal note, my wife and I are blessed that our 3 adult children have all chosen to stay in San Antonio. But we don't take that for granted because Texas cities are competitive. And they would love to lure our children away to their job openings, their daily lives, their daily amenities. And on a professional note, what you just heard from Sarah was we spend a lot of time, energy, effort, resources, and money to recruit companies to come here. Part of our challenge is to balance business retention with business recruitment. Therefore, saying no is not an option. Doing nothing is not an option. Keeping the status quo is not an option. In raising our children, Christina and I have done what we believe is the best we can do to prepare our children for the future. The question is San Antonio willing to fight to keep them? I encourage you to support the Sports and Entertainment District, which includes the new arena for the Spurs. Thank you.
Jesse Cosades, followed by Bill Brendel.
Good afternoon, Mayor Jones and council members. Thank you so much again for having us. Our input is definitely taken through you guys, and we really do appreciate that. You know, I'm speaking here as a downtown resident, as a young professional who actually chose to stay in San Antonio and build a career here in a city I call home. I grew up in District 1 as a child and now as an adult, and I went to the sessions that Laura Houston and all of you hosted, and my gosh, it described everything we needed to know. The questions were answered, everyone had an opportunity to talk, and it definitely gave an eye-opening experience of what this next level experience of the Sports and Entertainment District could be for San Antonio. Now let me remind you, it's not just sports, it's entertainment as well. It is a place for us to enjoy, to walk, to live, and thrive. From what's going on at the rodeo with Cody to the airport expansion, people are seeing us along the world as the crown jewel that we are as our city. Now, let me tell you, popcorn isn't 25 cents anymore, right? We gotta move on as a futuristic city for those that live and stay and work in San Antonio. And unfortunately, not like myself, a lot of students and graduates from our wonderful universities have left to Austin, to Houston, to Dallas. Why? Because we can't keep up as a city. And unfortunately, we are losing that talent. And I hope that you as a council, you as Mayor Jones, will make sure that we have a place to live, work, and continue our career path, not just from the start of graduation, but through the entirety of our lives. And with that, I definitely encourage you to make this a positive outcome for our community. Who is going to create this stadium for us? Who is going to create all of these opportunities for us? It is our artists, it's our contractors, it's our, our people that are actually building with their hands from our community for this amazing opportunity. So as I ask you, keep this project moving, make this space for a real community, and we've looked at the numbers, now make this about San Antonio and make this about our home. Thank you.
Bill Brendel, followed by Robert Shelby.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On behalf of the San Antonio Visitor Alliance, a local tourism advocacy organization that was established here in the mid-90s, I'm here today to express our strong support for the proposed Sports and Entertainment District in downtown. According to our most recent economic study from 2023, the tourism industry welcomed 36 million visitors to our community. We contribute $21 billion in economic impact, supporting nearly 150,000 jobs, approximately 1 in 8 citizens of San Antonio, and generating an annual payroll of $4.6 billion. These numbers underscore the vital role that tourism and hospitality play in San Antonio. We have had generations of local leaders who saw opportunities for San Antonio, and they invested time, energy, and finances into major tourism hubs: the redeveloped Alamo Complex, Hemisphere, the Riverwalk, the museum and mission reaches of the river, and the Pearl District, just to name a few. It's now time for leadership to set the stage for the next iteration of San Antonio's downtown, and we believe this sports entertainment development is that investment. This visionary project represents a transformative opportunity for San Antonio, one that will stimulate economic growth, elevate our cultural and entertainment offerings, and further invest in a critical area of our downtown. Just as importantly, it promises to enrich the quality of life for residents and for visitors. San Antonio is known for its rich cultural heritage, a thriving tourism industry, and a passionate sports fan base. The creation of a modern and integrated district that brings together family-friendly areas, convention space, sports, live music, and entertainment will help position our city as a premier destination for innovation, events, and investment. Thank you.
Robert Shelby, followed by John Hinojosa.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. I'm Robert Shelby. I live in Councilman Kerr's District 1. In the interest of full disclosure, I am from Indiana and as such a big basketball fan. I've been in Texas for over 53 years and consider myself as a naturalized Texan. Almost half of my time here, I've had season tickets to the Spurs games, so I do have some prejudice in favor of the Spurs. They have an excellent staff and are good citizens of San Antonio. At the meeting last month, I heard the mayor state that she thought the Spurs should give the city a portion of their ticket sales, concessions, and parking. In other words, if the Spurs want a new arena, they have to pay the city a kickback to get the approval. The city is not even going to spend any money to build the new arena. They will need to sell bonds to build the infrastructure that will be needed for the Hemisphere development, whether the arena is built or some other structure is built. These bonds will be paid off by the use of Project Marvel land. The mayor and city council should not be looking to the developers and businesses that will be doing business in the city to balance the city budget. Do your job and balance the budget, providing the basic services that the citizens deserve and expect from the city. This mayor and city council need to look at the big picture of the sports and entertainment district. It is not just the new arena for the Spurs. All the other development will also bring visitors and customers to the area. Hopefully, the additions to the Alamo Dome will give San Antonio another Final Four. Those visiting people will be paying sales tax. Out-of-town visitors may be using hotel rooms and rental cars that will generate county revenue for the venue tax to fund the county portion of the arena cost. At the last meeting, opponents to the sports and entertainment district listed several things the money should be used for instead of that. In closing, look forward and move forward with a new arena.
John Hinojosa, followed by Derek Fox, please. Derek Fox, followed by Lauren Mandel.
Mayor Jones and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I'm Derek Fox, work in District 2, and have proudly served as Executive Director of the Valero Alamo Bowl since inception in 1992. Our 32 games have delivered $1.2 billion in economic impact, drawn nearly 2 million fans, and attracted 173 million national viewers, showcasing San Antonio across the country. But beyond the big numbers, the Alamo Dome has helped us build something that belongs to our city, a holiday tradition that brings our citizens together to celebrate, connect, and host visitors who experience San Antonio at its very best. More importantly, the impact is deeply local. We have ticket holders in each of your districts. Every single high school and university in your districts receives scholarships to the bowl. 12 million so far since 2020 and 1.25 million alone last year. We're proud to be the #1 local scholarship giver of all bowl games. But we can't stand still. We've worked hard to move up from the bottom of the postseason rung in 1993 to our position as the top bowl outside the CFP. To do so, we have leapfrogged cities that have not invested in their facilities and compete with bowls in newer, more modern venues. To maintain our position that delivered $59 million in impact last year and attract future opportunities like the College Football National Championship to San Antonio, the Alamo Dome must evolve. The proposed sports and entertainment district ensures we don't just keep pace, but lead. This is about more than facilities. It's about building upon what makes our city so special, a vibrant, walkable, world-class downtown that reflects who we are and where we're headed. Let's keep our momentum going and ensure San Antonio keeps shining on the national stage. We support the city staff's recommendation on the Sports and Entertainment District and thank Mayor Jones, City Council, and Judge Sakai for their leadership on this transformational initiative. Thank you.
Lauren Mandel, followed by Stephanie Reyes.
Thank you, Mayor Jones and council members, for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the San Antonio chapter of Associated General Contractors and our 285 member companies. I'm here to express our support for the proposed Sports and Entertainment District, a transformative investment in our city's economic future, infrastructure, and quality of life. Our members, general contractors, specialty contractors, trade partners, service providers, and suppliers are ready to roll up their sleeves and help build these projects from the ground up. From a commercial construction perspective, the benefits are clear. The development phase alone is expected to generate thousands of jobs, not just in construction, but across architecture, engineering, logistics, materials, design, and project management. These will be thousands of well-paying jobs that put food on the table and support families here in San Antonio. Opportunities like these give folks a pathway into successful and meaningful careers in the trades. And when you invest in local talent, the benefits multiply and stay here at home. This isn't just for tourists. It's for our residents and helps future-proof our city, preparing it for growth while honoring those things that make us uniquely San Antonio. The commercial construction industry stands ready to build not just the structures, but the foundation for San Antonio's continued growth, opportunity, and shared prosperity. Thank you.
Stephanie Reyes, followed by Mario Bass.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Stephanie Reyes, and I am proud President and CEO for the Real Estate Council of San Antonio, known as REXA, and I'm joined here by several of our REXA board members. On behalf of our more than 300 member companies and 1,400 industry professionals in the commercial real estate industry, I'm here today to express our strong support of the proposed Sports and Entertainment District. REXA's mission is to advocate for policies that support affordable, responsible, and sustainable development. And we believe that the vision of the district aligns with that mission, revitalizing our urban core through strategic catalytic investment that will drive long-term economic growth, create new jobs, and enhance the quality of life for residents and visitors alike. The projected impact of this initiative is transformative. According to the city's own consultant, the development of the district would generate an estimated $18.7 billion in economic activity over the 30 years. Moreover, the city stands to benefit from $351 million in tax revenue during that time, without the use of general funds dollars or direct taxpayer burden. The San Antonio Spurs, in partnership with private investors, have already committed over $1 billion to anchor the effort. This kind of private sector leadership, coupled with a long-term vision from the public sector, is exactly the kind of collaboration that this city needs to secure a vibrant and competitive future for downtown. It is important to recognize that how critical the spurs are to this economy for several economic, cultural, and community-based reasons. The spurs generate hundreds of jobs directly through the organization and indirectly through events, tourism, vendors, and hospitality. Spurs games and events attract thousands of out-of-town visitors, filling hotels, restaurants, and shops. The visitor spending boosts local businesses and sales tax revenue. Their presence in downtown will anchor and attract private investment. The Spurs are not just a team, they're symbolic of San Antonio's identity and our pride. We encourage City Council to move forward with this initiative, and we hope to see it back in 2 weeks.
Mario Bass, followed by Johnny Hernandez.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Jones and esteemed council. My name is Mario Bass. I'm the president and CEO with Visit San Antonio. I live in District 10 and I work in District 1. The convention center expansion, with its element of the proposed convention center expansion and the entertainment district, will open up the doors for larger convention groups that can explore San Antonio finally and be immersed in our history and our culture, as well as the rest of our incredible city. In fact, meeting groups look to other cities that can accommodate their meeting space and technological needs. For example, from 2019 to 2024, San Antonio lost more than $716 million in economic impact from major conventions and 465,000 potential visitors because the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center is just too small. An analysis showed us if San Antonio was to expand our convention center by an additional contiguous 200,000 square feet of exhibit space, there are 94 groups representing $921 million, almost $1 billion in economic impact, representing 1.7 million potential visitors that we can prospect and try to bring to our city. This proposed expansion enables us to retain the convention business of high-level corporations and associations, such as the American Academy of Ophthalmology. Ophthalmology Convention represents 26,000 attendees and an economic impact of $20 million, and that's just within a short time period. And in closing, we'd also like to state that every year we continue to see more and more demand for our destination. So thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Johnny Hernandez, followed by Lindsay Andrews.
Good afternoon, Mayor Jones, City Council, City Manager. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to date myself, but I remember sitting at the Hemisphere Arena watching the Spurs when in the old arena that was already downtown. You know, we were celebrating 30 years as a local business, True Flavors. 20 of those years has been in the convention center. 10 of those years was as a tourism commissioner appointed by Hardberger and Castro, where I learned all about tourism and about the convention center. I want to talk for a minute about the Spurs' commitment to local businesses. La Gloria partnered with the Spurs in 2018. It was one of my career highlights to work with the Spurs, to see La Gloria and our brand in the Frostbank Center. The Spurs have made a huge commitment to local businesses. They've spent millions of dollars and time creating an amazing culinary residency program that has 10 local businesses, restaurants, food trucks, or chefs. Every season, we rotate the residency program with an amazing team. Casey, Bobby, Kevin, Lori, RC. The Spurs leadership is so dedicated to our local business community. You will not find better owners committed to our local businesses and growing that in the new arena. I'm going to shift for a second to education. I serve on the board of the Culinary Institute of America, and I serve as the chair of the Hospitality Advisory Board for St. Philip's College. I say that to share with you, there is not a more important gift that you can give our hospitality workforce than creating an arena of the future in our downtown. The job creation strength of this type of attraction is unmeasurable, and it's simply not about the arena. It is about the collective strength of its surrounding area. The Hemisphere's beauty has everything to do with our community. The families from the West Side that come to visit our downtown. Mayor,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Lindsay Andrews, followed by Jasper Colon.
Madam Mayor, Ben Acevedo was with me also. I believe you called his name before. Benito.
6 minutes. Sorry, excuse me, 4 minutes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Benito of District 3, and Lindsay, I don't know what you're in.
10.
In 10. So a big concern for a lot of us in the entertainment and bar industry is this will become another St. Mary Street and Broadway corridor situation, where the projects take longer than expected or incomplete, and the local small businesses lose out, and the non-elected City of San Antonio leaders aren't held accountable. All we're asking is to slow this vote down until more information and effective informed planning can be done. Thank you.
Yeah. Madam Mayor and everybody, all the city council, I work in the service industry. I've worked in it for 25 years. When they talk about entertainment, I am entertainment. I've been an entertainer for 25 years. I've talked to many of bartenders, those who have, that are bar managers, who are servers, those who are hurting now. They're already hurting in their service industry. I'm not asking to stop it. What I'm asking, because it's a great idea. I love the fact that we are going to do more for our city and more for our Spurs, that everybody's going to get what they can get later on. But what about now? What about the people that are suffering now? Those bartenders that are sitting there that are normally used to working hard and getting $300 a day just to take home are now making $60 just to take home now. All we're asking is to please slow it down so we can go ahead and see where those people are going to be able to land on their feet perfectly later. And I thank you all so much for taking this time out to listen to us, the people, the citizens of the city of San Antonio.
Jasper Collin, followed by Philip Adcock. Okay. Philip Adcock, followed by Gabriel Castro.
Hello, I'm here to encourage you to not progress on this vote and no longer give any money to billionaires and land to billionaires. I heard one of the people earlier talk about a gap in entertainment with the small or medium-sized venues, saying that downtown San Antonio does not have a 4,500, 5,000 seat arena. But I believe that last year City Council approved the Missions Stadium, which is going to fill that gap because it's also an arena. So I'm not sure if they're counting that in their projection because that's just competing with itself. I want to encourage the city to no longer let the leeches of San Antonio leech off the people and let people have our homes, have our education, have everything we need. Don't let the Spurs hold you hostage like the Missions did. Don't let that happen. If the Spurs keep holding us hostage, that will be the only time that I will ever say, go Spurs, go. Thank you.
Gabriel Castro, followed by Joshua Trevino.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. My name is Gabriel, and I'm 17 years old, a student here in San Antonio. I came here today because I believe in the future of our city, and I believe in the sports and entertainment district, that this is a big step in the right direction. This project isn't just about building something new. It's about creating a place that connects people like families, students, neighbors, not just visitors. A place for concerts, games, festivals, and a real community. It's about making downtown more exciting, more accessible, and more connected. For young people like me, this project means opportunity, new businesses and venues. give us chances to get jobs, internships, and experiences in fields like entertainment, sports, tech, and hospitality. It gives us people like us a reason to stay in San Antonio and grow here. And I really respect that this project is listening. I've seen the effort to involve the community with meetings and outreach in all districts. This kind of transparency is what we should expect from big projects like this. I get there are concerns, but from what I've seen, this is being paid for mostly by hotel and rental car taxes, paid by visitors, not by raising local taxes. And the Spurs are stepping in a big way too. That shows this is a team effort and not being forced on us. This is what we should expect from a big investment like this. This is being done with us and not with anyone. If we do this right with accountability, inclusion, and access for everyone, this district can become something we're proud of for generations. I support this project. I want to live in a city that's bold about its future, a city that creates places for people to connect, celebrate, and grow. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Joshua Trevino, followed by Lupita Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, Mayor Jones and all the council people. My name is Joshua Trevino. I am a current senior at Texas A&M University Corpus Christi with plans to return back to my home city upon graduation in May of 2026. I currently live and reside in District 4, and I'm here to express my support for the new Sports and Entertainment District. I do truly believe that this project is a smart investment for the future of the city. This project is more than just a development. I do believe that it's an investment in San Antonio's future. Right now, many families I know, including mine, have to travel to different cities for different venues, such as Austin or Houston, to have to just go to concerts or different other larger events that San Antonio can't have. By building this district here at home, we create more opportunities for family to come together in the district and spend more quality time here in the city than having to leave the city and go somewhere else to spend that time. This isn't just about fun either. It's about economic growth. A sports entertainment district will create jobs, generate long-term revenue for the city, and give local businesses more opportunities to thrive and grow. It means more people will be spending their money in San Antonio, whether it be the locals or any tourists that come. They'll be spending it at restaurants, shops, hotels, or anywhere else they desire to. This district will enhance and create a place where families can gather, celebrate, and build memories. It strengthens the value of family that San Antonio holds so dearly to their heart. By giving us more ways we can connect, celebrate, and enjoy a city together. This district will help keep San Antonio competitive, vibrant, and attractive, not just for residents, but for visitors and for future investments as well. I want to conclude my time by saying thank you, Mayor Jones, and thank you for the council people for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Lupita Gonzalez, followed by Yolanda Colunga.
Hi, Mayor. So Yolanda Colunga and Candido Colunga are ceding their time for me. Yep. Okay, thank you. And she'll be doing my slides. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. I've provided you with hard copies of my presentation slides entitled Why a Health Equity Analysis is Essential for the Sports and Entertainment District Proposal Evaluation. So what is health equity? Health equity means that all San Antonians have a fair, just opportunity to achieve their best possible health, regardless of where they live, how much they earn, or their background. So why does this matter? Considering health equity in city planning helps ensure that growth benefits everyone. And what supports health equity? A full health equity analysis should ideally assess each of the vital conditions for health, such as humane housing, a thriving natural world that includes clean air, clean water, basic needs for health and safety, meaningful work, lifelong learning, reliable transportation. So I recommend an analysis in each of these categories to fully understand how the proposed sports district might impact community well-being. However, for this short presentation, I'll focus on two key areas with immediate relevance, which is the climate equity and housing equity. So